Hi, everyone. I'm Ani Anderson, and this is my partner, Brian Traskos. We're from Motivation Beyond Measure. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are talking about why the only time is now. And this is a really important conversation. Brian, I'm so glad that you and I are having a chance to do this conversation so that other people can listen in. We were talking recently in our kitchen about the importance of this topic, and I'm really glad that we get to bring it today to folks. So before we get going on this topic, why the only time is now, I think it's an interesting topic, right, Brian? Because we read about it all the time in books and in magazines, and we see on television and in classes. Be present. Be mindful. The only time is now. And we can actually talk, and we're going to talk today, which is why I'm so excited about the physiology behind how that works. Because I think once we start to really understand the physiology behind this, it makes more sense, right? Because it's kind of this esoteric, experience. What does that mean? The time is now. How do I really, find that in myself so I can do something with it, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah. Well, actually, the funny time doesn't even exist. Really, when you think about it, time doesn't even exist. It's completely a human construct. Because time is different on Earth than it is on the Moon, than it is on Saturn, than it is on Jupiter. Because as humans, we've constructed time based on how fast the sun revolves, or how I was going to say the sun revolves around the Earth.
That's what kind of day you're having today.
Okay, all right. So let's come back to the present time, not pre-Michelangelo, pre-Da Vinci. So so we've constructed time on how fast the Earth revolves around the sun. But time in and of itself actually doesn't exist at all. So when we think about the time is only now, there is only now, really. I mean, there really is only present moment, anything going on. So it's funny when we start talking about things like I don't have the time, or it's not the right time, or another time, or I'll do it next time. We've got that word is in our whole life and how we discuss everything, but we're talking about something that doesn't even exist.
Yeah. I was talking to a coaching client recently, and as they were talking, they kept mentioning time. I'm not sure when the right time will be. It hasn't been the right time. It's taking a long time. And I started smiling and giggling a little bit. And I said, boy, you're doing some major self-sabotaging here. And she didn't get that at all. She said, what do you mean? So I had to say, time is really a construct that lives within yourself. It's perceptual. And so, we started to talk about that a little bit and pick it apart. It's really amazing to me how we say these things, they come out of our mouth, but then our behavior is really driven by these ideas. But there's something deeper than that, right? Because all of our behavior is ultimately driven by our sensations and our physiology at a deeper level. So let's just get into the science of this a little bit, Brian, and talk about the subconscious and the conscious mind.
Right. So if we talk about time and the subconscious and the conscious mind, one of the things we have to remember is that the subconscious doesn't know what time it is, right? The subconscious only ever deals right now. And it's always now. Now, the subconscious is programmed based on what has happened in what we might call the past, but the subconscious perceives that that past is happening now, and it's not even the past; it's still the now. So, right, so that it's still our conscious mind. Our conscious mind uses time. So our conscious mind can look at referencing the past. It can look at planning for the future. Our conscious mind divides the day up into the 24 parts, and then the 24 parts into 60 parts, and the 60 parts another 60 parts, and kind of thing. That's what our conscious mind does. Our subconscious mind doesn't care about that at all. It does nothing with it, right? It's not even an issue for the subconscious.
Does not know what time it is. And it's important to remember that the subconscious mind is about 95% of our mind power, and the conscious mind is only about 5% of our mind power.
Yeah.
And so the vast majority of us has no idea what time it is.
Right, and is constantly responding to a perceived present experience. Even if our conscious mind says that happened 50 years ago, our subconscious mind is saying it's happening now.
Yeah, we still feel those things in our body. Our muscles still contract, and go ahead. All of that stuff is happening.
Yeah, whatever traumas, whatever hurts, whatever transgressions, whatever joys, whatevers that have happened in our so-called past, are the subconscious is running programs on those things right, like in this present moment. And of course, the subconscious is protecting us from experiences that our conscious mind, we've said in the past, have had in the past, but our subconscious mind is protecting us from repeating now experiences that we couldn't process, that were too overwhelming, and AKA traumatic, right? I mean, that's really what, in a lot of ways, you think about what trauma is from our earlier time in our lives, are experiences that we couldn't process. And of course, if you're a kid, even as an adult too, but really as a kid, you don't have potentially the cognitive faculties to process things that are traumatic. So our subconscious mind takes over those processes and compartmentalizes it in our physiology and buries it in places in order to kind of keep it from re-arising, if you want to think about it that way. But our subconscious mind is always right now in the now.
Yeah, and our subconscious mind is telling our conscious mind how to think, which, every time I hear that and say that, it just blows my lid. It's the emoji with the mind blown. Mm-hmm. The subconscious mind is telling the conscious mind how to think. So we think we have so much control mm-hmm. over our conscious mind, when in fact, the reason why we are thinking like we're thinking and feeling like we're feeling and thinking about what we're feeling like we are is because all that information is coming from the subconscious.
Right. So let's, just to say that again for a second on, just to make sure everybody got it, is that our subconscious mind is telling our conscious mind how to think. Just let that land for a second, because so many of us think, oh, I'm conscious, I'm an adult, I have free choice and all these kinds of things. And I'm not saying those things don't exist, but the vast majority of the time, our subconscious mind is telling our conscious mind how to think about what it is that we're experiencing. And if our subconscious mind is trying to navigate our present moment awareness and move us closer to safety and away from distress, then what it's going to do is it's going to feed our conscious mind limited information based on getting us to where our subconscious mind wants us to go. So we might think we have free choice, but our conscious mind is only making decisions based on the limited information that the subconscious mind is offering it in the now. So
in the present. So one of the major take-home points that we want to leave this conversation with for those that are watching is that when you hear yourself saying, it's not the right time, I don't have the time, it's something about the time, you really will invite you, do whatever you like, to take a pause, take a time out, and remember this conversation. You might even ask yourself what time the subconscious mind thinks that it is.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that is, go ahead.
This plays into everything in our lives, right? To me, the words that we speak can be like a flag waving for us mm-hmm. to really become aware of our experience. And of course, what we become aware of, we can change. But the words that we speak can become a flag. So all this, like these things are operating within and through us all the time. Constantly. Mm-hmm. They're operating within through us constantly. Our beliefs, our patterns are operating within and through us constantly. We don't even see it. It's the water we're swimming in. And so sometimes we can catch some flags waving and go, oh, I see that right there. And maybe I want to do something a little bit different about that.
Yeah. So I think this is really important to talk about for people who are interested in conscious growth. So people who are interested in, hey, I want to grow, because you're growing anyway. I mean, the thing is, natural law, just look outside your window, everything's growing. And so humans are a part of the nature, so we're growing also. Now, we might not be growing like we stop growing physically after a certain point in time.
Well,
But
taller anyway,
yeah,
you
taller
and
maybe.
me.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it grow that way. But we stop growing physically at a certain point in time, but neurologically we don't. Our brain keeps evolving right until we die. Like neuroplasticity, now we know our brain changes throughout our entire life, and our brain changes throughout our entire life. That's correlative to our beliefs and our spiritual development, or the way that we see ourselves as part of a greater whole, right? Our emotional development. So we keep developing as humans. And so when we do that consciously, that's conscious growth. When we actually say, hey,
Right.
I'd like to change the way that I perceive the world. I like to change the way that I react to the world. I like to change the way that I am in the world. That's a conscious growth choice. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so we have a challenge for you if you're watching this live or the recording. But before I say it, Brian, did you have anything else that you wanted to say about this topic? Did we hit all the points that you wanted to make sure you said?
No, I want to hit one more thing. And
Okay, go
the
ahead.
thing I wanted to make based on that conscious growth paradigm is because we're always growing, and consciously we want to change something. So we say, I want to have a different outcome, or I want to do something differently. And as soon as we think that, believe it or not, the opportunity to have that change immediately materializes instantly, because that's how connected we are with the universe around us. We go to a higher thought plane. We think a different vibrational frequency. Let's put it that way. Our thoughts and our physiology goes to a different vibrational frequency when we decide that we want something different. So we make the decision to want something different. The opportunity immediately comes up, and then what do people say? It's not the right time.
It's not the right time. I'm giggling to myself because I have a number of different examples of this, but two that are striking that I want to bring up is this. So I have conversations with people sometimes who have seen us and want to maybe do something with us professionally, and they kind of like don't even know why they're talking to me or why they're here. It's like that. Like you said, the opportunity shows up immediately, and all of a sudden we're in front of them talking, and then they find themselves on a phone call or something, and they're like, I'm not exactly sure why I'm here. I mean, it happens quite a bit, actually. It's not funny to me. Like, I understand, and I've even had people say, they say that when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and I'm like, hi. It's kind of this disconcerting, interesting feeling for a person when all of a sudden they are ready and the opportunity does show up, and they almost like don't even know what to do with it. It's a pretty big success principle to be able to recognize those opportunities and put them into play faster, right? To not put this perception of time in the middle of things, because it's not pausing things. It's actually taking you in the opposite direction. Rather than taking you in the direction of the opportunity, it's taking you in the direction of your old patterning is the thing. And actually, that's the second example I wanted to bring up. I had this really interesting call with somebody once. I reached out to them out of the blue. I knew them, but not super well. And I thought they'd be really good for a program that we were running, Brian. And I called them, and they picked up the phone and said, I can't believe you're calling me. I have been praying to God for an answer. For like a solid day. It's just been the number one thing on my mind, and you are calling me. I thought that was so interesting because we had a few different conversations, and this person didn't end up signing on to any kind of program with us. And so it was really interesting to see how she was actively asking for answers, and
Right.
I'm positive that this was the answer to her dilemmas. And she didn't take advantage of it because she said it wasn't the right time. That's exactly what she said to me. And then she said, maybe next year. And I actually reached out to the person in a year. And in that span of a year, her patterns had inflamed.
Yep.
The body difficulties that she was having had inflamed. The relationship difficulties that she had been having had inflamed. And now it was an even harder time to make the decision because now she had even more to deal with, right? Because those patterns had been playing out for a whole nother year.
Yeah, I can actually give you exactly the same example from my own life. So I remember I wanted to study with a certain teacher, and this teacher ended up being one of the most transformative teachers I've had in my life, and he's still a mentor to me in a lot of ways. I look up to him quite a lot. And I remember when I wanted to start studying and learning more about qigong and metaphysics. That was like a thing I really wanted to start learning about. And so I said, I want to do this. So I got onto the internet and I found him, and I was like, this is the guy. Like, I'm going to learn with him. But you know what? It's not the right time. And that's exactly what I said. I said, it's not the right time. And it's not the right time because I've got a family I need to support, and I can't take the time off of work, and I've got all these other things going on, and there's not enough money in the bank, and blah 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 blah. And exactly what you're saying. Over 5 years, I kind of followed him over 5 years, and during that 5 years, my life slowly unraveled. My health got worse. I ended up in a health crisis. I ended up in a massive relationship crisis. I ended up, well, those are kind of the two big things. My money situation didn't get any better necessarily either. But so things weren't getting better for me because I said the right time. And it wasn't until everything kind of came crumbling down for me that I realized, I should have done that 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. So my conscious mind was saying 5 years ago. My subconscious mind was delaying the process as long as it possibly could. Now, why? Well, we don't have enough time to go into all that. But here's the thing. Your subconscious mind is going to resist change, almost any change at all, especially if it's something that's going to break a core pattern, even if that core pattern is not functional anymore. So it's not the right time verbiage or vocalization or language, let's say, is really what it is. It's an absolute flag that the subconscious is putting on the brakes of conscious growth. That's it. I mean, really, if it's not the right time, then if that language comes out of someone's mouth, now I know, because it came out of my mouth enough times, and now I know that the more I said that, the more I delayed my conscious growth, and the more I decayed in my life. I mean, that's my personal experience. So I don't use that anymore. So for me, it's not like it's not the right time. It's like, when is the right time, and what do I need to line up to be able to make this happen as soon as possible? As soon as possible.
Yeah, so let's talk about this this challenge I have for everyone who's listening live or listening to the recording. I want you to catch, if you choose, this is an invitation, of course, catch it's not the right time or something about time like we've been talking about coming out of your mouth, okay? Catch it, and then stop yourself and say whatever's true.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting. Mm-hmm. Like you said, you don't say this anymore. You got to say something, right? You might say, I'm scared. I don't know how. I don't feel supported. I don't trust you. Something else is going to come out. And so just say whatever it is that is true. It's really hard to say it's not the right time anymore when you know that that is a construct like we've been talking about today. Okay. Yep. So I have a lot of reverence and compassion for anybody who decides to take this challenge, because it's brave work, isn't it? It's really brave work. And let's face it, we all have really brave work to do in the world to help the world become the world that we want to see. So each one of us at a time, take challenges like this. Stop saying it's not the right time. Say what's true for you instead. And that is going to set you on a massively different an important path, growth path, growing what you want to grow in your life, rather than the old dysfunctional patterns that aren't serving you anymore.
Yep, absolutely. I couldn't say it any better than that.
Thanks. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Whether you're watching live or watching the replay, we're really excited that you were here with us. We want to hear your insights, questions, and comments below. Put them in the comments. We'll make sure to get back to you. And have a wonderful rest of your timeless week. We'll see you later. Bye-bye, everyone.